Awesome. Thank you, Chris. Yeah, so basically, I was thinking about Nutcracker recently, and I've been in so many productions. It all started when I was about 6 years old at Peninsula Ballet Theater, and I was in the party scene. I was really little, and the cool thing about that particular production is that everyone in the initial party scene has a very specific character. And so I was cast as the shy little girl. So, it being the Victorian era, I came up to the receiving line. Like, I took one look at the main receiving line and went, nope, nope, not happening. And so I would bourrée across the stage and hide behind the furniture for a little while. And then my fake parents had to coax me out. And it was very interesting because every kid in the party scene had something like that. So if you're in the audience watching, the party scene becomes this massively character driven event, not just about the dancing part. And I always really liked that. It was also my first time performing in a really huge theater with multiple backstage areas and dressing rooms. So I remember feeling a little bit overwhelmed at first. And then I also got what was referred to affectionately as the hot dog hoop. Instead of being round, it was kind of weirdly like a hot dog. Just, so that was my first memory of being in Nutcracker. I don't recall when I first saw it because I was so little. And then the next year, we moved. And so, although I went to a new ballet school, I decided, or rather, my parents decided, let's do this Nutcracker still. So I went and auditioned, and we just drove over for rehearsals. I was the China doll in that one. And the really challenging part about it was at the end of Act 1, the Christmas tree grows. It's very impressive to watch. There was just one small problem. There was no trapdoor near the tree. That meant myself, the teddy bear that came to life, and a stagehand who cranked the tree to make it grow were all stuck behind the normal-sized Christmas tree for the entire first act. Yeah. So we were huddled up, and then I suddenly had to go on stage and do the whole dance with no warm-up. Yeah, the tree would grow and then we would magically come to life. So I'll never forget being stuck behind there going, when is Act 1 going to be over? Oh. And then at that point, we moved again. There's a theme there. And I went to Redwood Empire Ballet. And in that one, I got my first, I think, Act 2 experience as one of the children of Mother Ginger. That's the one where you have the huge hoop skirt with all the children underneath it, and they come out from under the skirt and start dancing. I ended up as a lead in that by a process of elimination because the lead had to put a foot all the way up here and hold on to it and hop in a circle. So your foot would be up here. And I was the only one who could do it. So I ended up doing that. That was a lot of fun. Then I graduated again to the party scene. That was pretty funny because in this production, Clara gives a little doll to all the party scene girls. The problem is we were very young. We were like 10. And so we all had a particular doll we all wanted. Like I was in a purple dress. I wanted the purple doll to match. And poor Clara would hand out this doll, and one of us would be like, that's not my doll. That's her doll. Why'd you give me? And then there would be all these exchanges and arguments. And the poor person rehearsing us would be like, just take the doll that Clara hands you and start your dance. And we were like, no, that's not my doll. And even on stage, I remember one of the performances, she gave out all the wrong dolls and we were like exchanging dolls. The music had started. We were supposed to be dancing and everyone was like, no, 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 that's Angie's doll. No, that's Megan's. And we finally figured it out and started, and we were in so much trouble afterward during notes. They were like, what was that? So I vividly remember that. The most fun at that particular studio was as a mouse in the battle scene. It was kind of a run-of-the-mill battle scene. However, all my friends were in it. And we were a mixture of mice and soldiers. It went fine during performances. However, we decided to enter some holiday parades as a company. They thought it would be cute to have some mice and soldiers doing some of the battle scene choreography, and then they gave us little tiny wooden swords and said, oh, and bat the swords around a little bit, just to add some flavorful color. My best friend and I, she was a soldier, I was a mouse, we decided that the battle scene demonstration would become a martial arts demonstration. So rather than what they expected, which is a nice little group of children dancing around, doing a little mouse thing, no, non-stop sword fighting. And we were such a bad influence, all the other mice and soldiers did it too. So you had the Sugar Plum Fairy in the tutu going down to the parade. Hello, hello. Behind her, battling mice and soldiers, just hacking, full on hacking at each other. Probably the most fun ever. I really wish in the Nutcracker, if I ever got to choreograph it, I would not choreograph the battle scene. I would go find a local karate school or something and have them be all the mice and soldiers. No ballet dancers. I would have them choreograph it into an actual battle, like full on kung fu in my Nutcracker if I ever got to do it. Yeah. Oh yes, I wrote down a few notes. Later on, in this production, the Nutcracker also grows. So the little tiny doll starts it off. Drosselmeyer dramatically comes across the stage with his cape, and I hid behind it, and I was supposed to take the place of the small doll, and then the next round, Drosselmeyer would come through, and it would be the full-sized Nutcracker. The person responsible for taking the doll off stage always forgot. So I would be like awkwardly trying to hide this tiny doll that wasn't supposed to be there. And that was, of course, after quick changing. Backstage, I had 3 minutes to change between party scene into the full Nutcracker outfit. It was the fastest change I've ever had. Yeah, that was wild. Yes, everyone was kung fu fighting. That would be just an awesome Nutcracker. Oh yeah, the other thing I remember from that particular production was the angels begin Act 2, and I was one of the angels in the satin dress and everything. Right before going on one performance, There's a rule why we're not allowed to drink or eat once we're in a costume, not even water. And this particular angel decided she was above that rule, and she drank a Coke. It spilled all down the front of her beautiful satin angel outfit as we were about to go on stage. Oh dear. Yeah. There's a reason we have rules. Yeah, it was tragic. I mean, what do you even do? Then we moved again because why not? We moved every couple of years. And I ended up at Marin Ballet. That one had the most impressive studio. It was 2 stories high. It had its own theater in-house. There were 2 different wardrobe rooms. It was massively huge. It's still there, and I haven't visited in a while, but really cool place. We did Secret Santas every year, and the goal was to find the weirdest places to put clues. And one year, my Secret Santa put it on the balcony, and we had to like go over the side of the balcony. Dancers, you know, you're pretty coordinated, but and then get it from underneath. The antics. Let's see. Oh yeah. Yeah, behind the scenes situations get pretty wild. And then on that one, let's see, the first one I was in the Chinese dance in the second act. Yeah, I should ask Marin Ballet if I could visit because it's a really neat location. But the problem with that particular dance was very intricate fan work. It's beautiful to watch. And although difficult, achievable if you're on stage right and you're right-handed. I was assigned stage left, which means you do the entire choreography with your left hand. I'm not left-handed. So by halfway through, it was cramping up, and I had really difficult trying to get all those flutterings with the hand I'm not used to. So I remember coming off stage and just being like, oh, oh. But that was actually a really cool dance to do. And then I moved on to another Act 2 dance, which was the Candy Canes. This is the one that changes, I think, the most often between productions. Sometimes they're shepherdesses, sometimes they're bonbons. The music is the one, dun 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 da 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 dun 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 da da. That one. We had the coolest, beautiful red and green and white striped outfits and these huge candy canes that we held, like this big. I still remember the choreography to that because it was just so fun. And I can probably still do it, actually. But again, I was stage left, so we had a little bit more of a tricky time manipulating stuff. Maybe they saw the Chinese one and were like, she can do with her left hand. I don't know. Oh, right. Also, on Marin Ballet, I vividly remember they decided to hold a rehearsal on Halloween. We were like 10 or 11 years old. This is the era you go trick-or-treating. And my mother was like, that's really weird that they scheduled that, but okay, what we'll do is you'll go in a costume that you can rehearse in, and we'll go trick-or-treating and stuff right before, and then we'll go to rehearsal, and then we'll go out again afterward. So I show up as Mrs. Watson from Sherlock Holmes in a nice dress I could dance in. I was really into Sherlock Holmes at that point. No one else came except the teacher who was supposed to be rehearsing. Yeah, we stayed for about 15 minutes and went through things, and then she's like, you know what? No one's coming. I didn't schedule this. I think this is nuts. Why don't you just go back to trick-or-treating and we'll just say we did the rehearsal? And I was like, yes. I'm out. I'm out of here. To this day, I don't know why they scheduled it then. Like, you have kids. October 31st. Don't schedule it. I did ballet since I was 6. I stopped when I was about a little early 20s. I still practice a little bit, but it's just on my own. Yeah. I had season tickets to San Francisco Ballet, however, for a long time, actually until kind of COVID hit, and that was very interesting to see all the stuff that they do. Then came a very interesting thing that happened, which is at Marin Ballet at the time, there were 2 main groups of people. One group was there to have fun. They wanted to wear pretty outfits and dance and just have a good time. The other group were the pre-professional training people who wanted to enter a company, and they wanted really rigorous training, a lot of contemporary things. We couldn't actually do Balanchine because there's a lot of rules about that, but things like, if you're familiar with Balanchine's works. The 2 groups began clashing to the point where they split into 2 schools. Marin Ballet, which still exists, is the let's have fun and we'll do a good job, but, you know, let's not obsess. Marin Dance Theater was founded saying, no, this is here. We're going to do our absolute best to have a very professional atmosphere. Had a lot of former dancers there teaching. The artistic director was a former dancer, I think with the Royal Ballet. I ended up with that group. And so we built the new studio from scratch. I was there sanding walls at the new place. Like, we had to build everything. And it was a really interesting experience, basically founding a ballet school from the ground up. And they didn't want to compete with Marin Ballet having a Nutcracker. You know, it was bad enough the school had to kind of split, which I think was ultimately a good plan to have 2 different emphases, and it was clashing too much. But they did a spin-off of the Nutcracker, which is the Enchanted Toy Shop. Sophie and the Enchanted Toy Shop, but that's kind of a long name. And they combined Nutcracker with kind of Pinocchio. Petrushka, and a little bit of Pinocchio too, with the dolls coming to life. Anyway, they have a street scene instead of a party scene, and then a snow scene. And then Act 2 is basically very similar, but it's set in a toy shop instead of a magical realm. In other words, it was Nutcracker with a new name and a few slight alterations. And so I finally, though, got to be in the snow scene. I had wanted to be that in the snow for so long. I was finally old enough, I think it was like 15 or so at that point, on point. And it was a lot of fun. I really, really just enjoyed being out there because the snow is falling, little tiny paper. I got to see the snow bags being made. They're basically huge canvas bags with tiny slits and ropes attached to the slits that pull them open. So there's someone kind of backstage yanking on a rope slightly every now and then, and that opens and it allows the snow to drift out of the bag. The fun part that they don't really show the audience is that in the final performance of whatever it is, Nutcracker or the Enchanted Toy Shop, they need to empty the bags, and the easiest way to do that is to open them up and just let all the snow out at once. And everyone gets on stage because it's really fun. and they just dump snow, and it's just full on falling until it's empty, and everyone's like throwing it in the air. It's really fun. It's like a mini snow party backstage. And then they have to sweep it all up and get it out of there. But I remember that. It was really fun. And then we were also very much involved in behind the scenes with the costuming at that point. And that's when I realized some people just don't pay attention. They finish the performance and then they leave. And they don't think about who cleans the dressing room, who takes the costumes back to the school. Yeah. There were times when there were 3 of us left to clean the entire dressing rooms, all by ourselves. I remember crawling around on the floor, picking up bobby pins, because you do your hair with bobby pins and there's a ton of them, to find all of them because the vacuum can't handle them. And so we would go up and down every single dressing room, just picking them all up off the floor. And then I remember one year, everyone left. There were 2 of us, 2, and I was a kid, who had to carry every single rack of costumes downstairs and then back inside the school. Now, it's the Marin Center. I can't remember the exact name of the theater part, but it's the Marin Center. Has a theater, and that's where we were. Beautiful theater. Frank Lloyd Wright designed it. We started calling him Frank Lloyd wrong because he didn't think about the backstage part. There's no elevator, and they're upstairs. Yeah, that was a lot of dedication to have to clean up that way. So we had to hand carry up circular, because of course, Frank is like, let's do really cool spiral staircases to the dressing rooms. We had to carry these racks of costumes, very heavy too, like Nutcracker costumes. They have masks, they have huge billowy robes. We're carrying these, trying not to like fall down these narrow staircases. And then we finally get down to the bottom and no one's there to help load. At this point, the school, unfortunately, was at St. Vincent's, which, if you've ever been to St. Vincent's School for Boys, is a gorgeous campus. They filmed movies there, actually. But the school was way in the back. And it's a gorgeous mission style. And so there's no walkways. So we had to kind of hand carry and roll the costumes all over, trying to find places that weren't a garden. Because you can't really get costumes through narrow garden paths at night. So yeah, this is the level. And there were 2 of us. And we had to roll them all over and finally got them back to the school. And there were rack after rack after rack, and we had to make multiple trips. And by the end, we were exhausted, and we were like, no one stayed to help. So the moral of this story is, if you're in a performance or anywhere, before you leave, look around. How many people are staying to put things away? Keep an eye out. They might need help. Yeah. At this point, I was getting kind of older, and I was an adult in the equivalent of the party scene, which is the street scene. And it was really relaxing. I got to do several different adult characters over the years, and of course, adults. I was like 18. They were very relaxing because you did not have to worry about huge amounts of choreography. You had like one dance. Most of it was look interesting in the background. And so we kind of put together our own little mini scenes. The fa adults, like I had a basket of stuff that I carried around as part of my costume, and I would go over to one of the other people, and like she'd pull something out and kind of look at it, and we'd fake talk to each other. They had a few street vendors, and we'd go pretend to buy stuff from them. And then one year I was the school teacher and had like, I don't know how many little tiny children in Victorian schoolgirl outfits. And that was fun because I got together with a couple of the kids and was like, act up. I'm serious. On stage, just act up. And then I'll have to be like, and that was really fun of my fake children. But after a while, you know, I had my own job and didn't really have time to go to a billion rehearsals. However, thinking back to earlier, it would have been fun to keep going. Oh, thank you, Sophie. Yeah, trying to dress in a historic period was a lot of fun. I have kind of at work a semi-Edwardian contemporary fusion look that I like to do. But basically, although I'm not currently doing Nutcracker anymore, it is a vague goal of mine that maybe when I'm much, much older, a lot of productions have a grandmother in the party scene. So when I'm 70 or something, it'd be kind of fun to go back and be like, do you need any grandmotherly characters to be in the background? Happy to go on there and be a character actor and shuffle around the stage. You know, that'd be kind of fun, right? So that's kind of the overview of my Nutcracker memories, as it were. And if you have any questions or Nutcrackers you like, put it in the comments. I think Pacific Northwest Ballet is my favorite battle scene of all the Nutcrackers. They really get into it, the sabers and everything. They used to have a very dark version of the Nutcracker that I recently re-choreographed to be fun again, but I kind of liked the other feel to it. It's unusual. I think I've seen all the Nutcracker movies. However, I was thinking about doing a video comparing them. Be interesting. 1880 and 1940s. Oh yeah, the 1920s is a great era to dress in, but it's hard to find stuff for. I have 2 gowns, and one of them is really starting to fall apart because it's over 100 years old now, I guess, now that I think about it. But to live in the 1880s and 90s, yeah, that's a really comfortable era for clothing, because I did living history in a wide variety, and when I could do about the 1900, 1898, that's the time where, you know, you can scrub floors and run around and play tennis, and yet you still look really neat. Yeah, that's a fun era. It's been interesting because I have been reading Outlander, and they talk a lot more about the costumes in the books, which is kind of a fun tidbit. Mostly it's Claire complaining about the shoes nonstop. I kind of wish they had put that in the series because I laugh every single time. Just yesterday, Claire was complaining about her shoes, and she looked at this chaise lounge and was like, oh, I wish I could just sit down and take off my shoes again. And I'm like, Claire, is she a hobbit? I'm pretty sure she's a hobbit. She hates shoes. Well, thank you for coming along with me as I am trying to initially figure out a YouTube live stream. I honestly think I prefer Instagram. Uh, but I want to try it out as a possibility, and potentially I'd like to eventually figure out a better format and then do some lower decks reactions by just syncing the time code, because Paramount does not allow any footage. Sometimes it even takes them down with a still picture. But I would like to offer something with Star Trek still somehow. So thank you for coming along, and I hope you enjoyed that.